After Moses and the Israelites crossed the Red Sea and saw the miraculous defeat of the Egyptians, they wandered into the desert of Shur. 3 days passed, and they found no water. Finally, they came to a place called Marah, where water was found, but it was bitter and undrinkable. The people began to complain against Moses, and in their distress, questioned why they had been brought into the wilderness. Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. When Moses threw the wood into the water, it became sweet and drinkable. The Lord then made a decree for them, saying, "If you listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in His eyes, if you pay attention to His commands and keep all His decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." From Marah, they journeyed to Elim, where they found 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and there they camped. Soon, as they moved further into the desert of Sin, the Israelites again began to grumble against Moses and Aaron, saying, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into the desert to starve." The Lord, hearing their complaints, told Moses that he would rain down bread from heaven for them. Each day, the people were to go out and gather enough for that day. In this way, the Lord would test them to see if they would follow His instructions. On the 6th day, they were to gather twice as much as usual, because the 7th day was to be a day of rest, the holy Sabbath. In the morning, a layer of dew surrounded the camp, and when the dew dried, thin flakes like frost appeared on the ground. The people saw it and said, "What is it?" Moses told them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat." Each person was to gather as much as they needed, but when some gathered more than they were told, it spoiled and became full of maggots by morning. Only on the 6th day were they to gather twice as much, and miraculously, the extra amount did not spoil. The people obeyed, and on the 7th day they rested. The Lord also commanded that a jar of manna be kept as a testimony for future generations, so that they might see the bread with which the Lord had fed them in the wilderness. Despite these miraculous provisions, the Israelites soon complained again as they journeyed further and found no water. They quarreled with Moses, accusing him of bringing them out of Egypt only to die of thirst. Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord instructed Moses to take the elders of Israel and his staff, the same one he used to strike the Nile, and go to Mount Horeb. "Strike the rock," the Lord said, "and water will come out of it for the people to drink." Moses obeyed, and when he struck the rock, water gushed out, quenching the thirst of the Israelites. As they continued their journey, the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses instructed Joshua to choose men and go out to fight the Amalekites, while Moses would stand on a hilltop with the staff of God in his hand. During the battle, whenever Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning, but whenever he lowered them, the Amalekites gained the upper hand. As Moses' arms grew weary, Aaron and Hur brought a stone for him to sit on, and they held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady until sunset. Moses and the Israelites were victorious, defeating the Amalekites. After the battle, the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven." Finally, Moses and the Israelites came to the base of Mount Sinai and set up camp there. Moses ascended the mountain, and the Lord called to him from the top. The Lord told Moses that if the people obeyed him fully and kept his covenant, they would be his treasured possession, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder and lightning, and a thick cloud covered Mount Sinai. The sound of a trumpet blast grew louder and louder, and all the people trembled. Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered in smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. The Lord warned Moses to tell the people not to come too close to the mountain or attempt to go up, for anyone who touched it would die. Then, in the midst of this holy encounter, the Lord spoke to Moses, preparing to give his people the covenant of the 10 Commandments, the laws by which they would live as his chosen people.